Hello and welcome to Super Great Kids Stories. Wise tales from storytellers around the world, which will make you laugh and sometimes cry. Recommended for ages 5 to 105. I'm Kim and I love stories. Hello, Super Great Kids, and how are you? I hope if you've recently returned to school or even started school for the first time that things are going well. Teachers often ask you to be quiet and listen, but you know, listening really does help you learn. And you, Super Great Kids, all have excellent listening skills because you've had lots of practice listening to all these stories. Now, I'm very happy because lots of lovely super great things are happening. We've got exciting news of an online show which we're performing in November. I'm going to be telling stories with Jason Buck, who told The Old Woman and the Pig. It's an online show of fairy tales with all the lumps and bumps left in. It's on Saturday, November the 16th at 1800 or 6 o'clock in the evening UK time. There'll be Baba Yaga and ogres and tigers and mean little imps and lots of sounds for you to join in with. Crunchy, munchy, yum, yum, yum. Look in the news section on our website, supergreatkidsstories.com, for more details. Another reason to be cheerful is that we have a new theme. Animal stories with flying foxes from Australia, cats and goblins from Japan, and owl stories from North America. And this week's story is a mouse story from Spain. But it's not just any old mouse. It's a Spanish tooth fairy mouse. Now, if that makes no sense to you at all, then listen to Juliana from Colombia and you'll learn something about Spanish-speaking cultures and tooth traditions. Just before we hear from Juliana, here's a little game for you. How many animal stories can you think of? Here's one to start you off. The Boy and the Snow Wolf. Now, over to you while we have a quick word with the grown-ups. Ready? Off you go.
Hello, Super Great Kim.
Hello, Super Great David.
Kim, I have a question.
I love questions. Fire away.
What is the best kind of story?
Well, I think the best kind of story is an old story which has been told for many years and passed on from person to person.
Ooh, that's a good answer. I thought you were going to say something specific like only Baba Yaga stories or Nancy stories or stories that have to have two-headed giants in them.
No, just a story which has been loved and passed along and told by lots of people.
Right, okay. So if we really want more people to hear stories, seems like we're going to need help from our lovely listeners.
Yes, we know these stories because people have been sharing them with each other for donkey's years. I tell you, you tell someone else, they tell someone else, and soon everyone knows the story.
You know what, Kim? I think maybe it's such a good idea that we could possibly put it into song. If you tell a friend and I tell a friend, we'll all have a super great time. And if they share one and they pass that along, a whole lot of us, a whole lot of us, a whole lot of us will have a super great time.
Hello, Super Great Kids, I'm back. I wonder how many animal stories you thought of. Did you know more than you thought you might? If it's 5, that's good. If you got 10 or more, that's amazingly good. I wonder if you have a favourite animal. I know of at least one owlet in the Channel Islands who loves sloths, or some people call them sloths. Now, It's time for our story, so let's give a warm welcome to storyteller Juliana Marin.
Hola, my name is Juliana, and I'm a storyteller from Colombia. Colombia is a beautiful country in South America, but for the past 3 years, I've been traveling all over the world. I've ridden camels in the Sahara Desert. I've gotten lost in the Amazon jungle. I've slept in Dracula's cemetery in Romania. And right now, I'm on an island in the Philippines, on the other side of the world from home. I'm going to tell you 2 stories today, a story within a story. One of them is true, and the other one might be. It will be up to you to figure out which is which. Are you ready? I say creak, you say crack. Creak, crack, creak, crack, creak, crack. Once upon a time, there was a king who had been king since he was a baby because his father had died before he was born. His name was Alfonso, and he lived in a great palace with his mother the queen, her advisor the priest, Father Coloma, and many, many servants. King Alfonso had everything he could wish for, and his life was easy and perfect. But even kings cannot be protected from everything, and one day, when King Alfonso was 6 years old, a tooth fell out. Ow! 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 King Alfonso howled and shrieked. Ew! There was blood. Ow! 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 Father Coloma came running when he heard the racket and found King Alfonso crying with the bloody tooth in his hand. Ah, said Father Coloma, this reminds me of a story. Now, King Alfonso loved stories, so he gradually stopped crying and let the servants take him to bed and give him ice to suck on, while Father Coloma sat beside him and began to tell. Once upon a time, there was a king who had been king since he was a baby. That's me, said King Alfonso. Except that this king's name was Booby, said Father Coloma. King Booby was a protector of poor children and a friend of mice. Mice? I'm not a friend of mice. I don't know any poor children. Your Majesty, are you going to let me tell the story or not? Well, King Booby was known far and wide for his generosity and kindness, and it was all because of a grand adventure he had when he was 6 years old. Now, King Booby was wearing his crown and eating his royal soup when, alas, a tooth began to wiggle. Auxilio! Auxilio! All the servants cried. King Booby's tooth has begun to wiggle. Who will save us? The entire court started running around. Doctors! Doctors! Doctors were called in from all over the kingdom, and they wrung their hands and wept. Oh, poor King Booby! What pain he must be in! Is he going to die? Oh, no! Listening to the story, King Alfonso giggled. You're silly. That's not how it happened. Father Coloma simply looked at King Alfonso, smiled, and continued with the story. But King Booby was strong and brave, and he was willing to face danger with his eyes open, and a string was tied around his loose tooth, and yank! Oh! The tooth came flying out. The president of the council fainted. But brave King Booby did not even utter a cry. The doctors all wanted to set the tooth in gold and jewels and keep it in the treasury, But King Booby decided that no, even though he was a king, he was a child like any other, and he would do what every other boy or girl his age all over the world did when they lost a tooth. He would put it under his pillow for Ratoncito Pérez. "Who's Ratoncito Pérez?" "Your Majesty, what do you mean? Have you never heard of Ratoncito Pérez?" "No." "But, Your Majesty, everyone knows Ratoncito Pérez. He's the tooth mouse. He comes at night and takes the tooth and in exchange leaves a splendid gift. Every child, rich or poor, has been doing this since the beginning of the world. How had you never heard of him?" "But I've never seen him." "He's very difficult to see. He always comes when children are sleeping." But King Booby, like I said, was a very brave and determined king, and he decided that he was going to stay up all night so that he could see Ratoncito Pérez. As the night grew dark, King Booby's eyes felt so heavy. But bravely, he kept fighting sleep, and just as his eyes were about to close, he felt a tail. There he was, a tiny little mouse with gold-rimmed glasses, a straw hat, and a red purse to put the teeth in. "Hello," said King Booby. "Why, hello," said Ratoncito Pérez. "I've never collected the tooth of a king before." And just like that, King Booby and Ratoncito Pérez became best of friends. They talked about their lives long into the night, until suddenly Ratoncito Pérez said, "It's late. I have to go collect another tooth." "Oh, can you take me with you, please?" "Your Majesty, that is not a good idea. The tooth I have to collect belongs to Gilito, and he lives in a very poor part of town. It could be dangerous." "But I'm brave." "Well, we'd have to stop by my house first to pick up Gilito's gift." And Ratoncito Pérez thought it would be a great honor to have the king visit his house. It wasn't very common to find a king who still lost teeth, you know. "Vale, let's go then." And Ratoncito Pérez stuck the tip of his tail up King Booby's nose. Achoo! King Booby sneezed and turned into a tiny little mouse with golden fur. "Hurry!" Ratoncito Pérez grabbed King Booby the mouse's paw and dragged him through a hole in the wall, through tunnels and spiderwebs and nasty, nasty drain pipes, and it was terribly scary, but King Booby was brave, until they finally reached Ratoncito Pérez's house. Ratoncito Pérez lived inside a box of cookies in an old bakery called Pastelería Prast, and his family was so excited to meet the king. But they couldn't stay long. The night would soon be over, and Gilito needed his gift. They ran through the dark streets, scampering around corners. "Careful! Cats!" And Ratoncito Pérez had been telling the truth. It was a poor part of town, and it was dangerous. King Booby was brave, but he was not prepared for what he saw when they finally got to Gilito's house. It was a horrible place. The roof was full of holes, and rain made muddy puddles on the dirt floor. Freezing wind blew through cracks in the walls, rustling a pile of garbage in the corner. "There's Gilito!" What? It wasn't a pile of garbage. It was people! Ratoncito Pérez and King Booby scampered over, and King Booby saw that lying right there on the cold, muddy ground, shivering under some torn rags, was a little boy his own age. The boy hugged his mother tightly as he slept, as they tried to keep each other warm. King Booby had never seen such a horrible thing, and he started to cry. How could he sleep in his big soft bed with feather pillows and silk sheets when just a few streets away there were boys who lived like this?
Don't cry, Your Majesty. I brought Gilito a coin in exchange for his tooth. Look!
But King Booby knew that that little coin wouldn't even be enough to buy a piece of bread, and he cried all the more. King Booby was silent on the way back home, following Ratoncito Pérez through the streets as the dawn broke. As soon as they were back in the palace, Ratoncito Pérez stuck the tip of his tail up King Booby's nose again,
Achoo!
and he turned back into a boy. A very, very tired boy who fell into bed and was instantly asleep. In the morning, he thought he had dreamed it all, but no, his tooth was gone, and under his pillow was a shining jewel that cost more than Gilito's house. Probably more than Gilito's whole neighborhood. King Booby cast it aside and was sad all morning at breakfast. The good queen noticed and asked, "What is wrong, my dear? Did you not like the present that Ratoncito Pérez brought you?" King Booby just said, "Mommy, why do I have so much when others have so little?" The good queen mother hugged King Booby and gave him a kiss. "It's so that you can use what you have to help others. When you are given great things, you must do great things." "I didn't know that," said King Booby. But he did now. And since he was king, he ordered Gilito and his mother to be given a good house, warm clothes, and good food, and he sold his jewels and many other things he didn't need in order to make sure that there would be no poor children in his kingdom. He also sent out proclamations throughout the land that all cats must be locked up at night, so that his friend Ratoncito Pérez wouldn't have any trouble. And he reigned wisely and justly, and brought peace and prosperity to his people, and was beloved by all the children and all the mice. The end. Your Majesty, said Father Coloma, what did you think of the story? But King Alfonso was already fast asleep. But he didn't forget the story. He wanted to be brave and kind like King Booby, you see, and so he thought about the story a lot, and it helped him every day be a little bit braver, a little bit kinder. He made mistakes, of course, everyone does, but despite this, there are still many people in Spain who say that King Alfonso was a good king who tried very hard to help people. And if you go to Madrid, Spain today, to the house where the old bakery Pastelería Prast used to be, you'll find that it's been turned into a museum. And you can visit it now without Ratoncito Pérez having to put his tail up your nose.
Oh, thank you so much, Juliana, for sharing that story. And you might be interested to know that children in several Spanish-speaking countries continue to this day to have Ratoncito Pérez, the tooth mouse, visit them when they lose a tooth. You know, I think even better than a jewel under his pillow, the best thing that Ratoncito gave the young king was an understanding that not everyone was as well off as he was. I don't know how pleased the cats would be to have to stay inside all night long, though. Here's a curious fun fact. For hundreds of years, in many countries, parents have been leaving their children's fallen-out teeth near a mouse hole to leave as a present for a mouse, in the hope that the child's adult teeth will grow in strong and tough like a mouse's teeth. That's a bit strange. More strange tooth traditions in the Owlet Letter this week. And here's my question. What would you give to children if you were a tooth fairy or a tooth mouse? Would you leave them a gold coin? Or would you leave them something else? That's for you to decide and us to find out. Now, Lots of owlets have been hopping into our nest, so it's time to dig deep into my bag of happies and say hello to some of you. Let's begin in Perth in Western Australia and give a hello hoot to owlets Claire, who is 8, and Owen, who is 6. They recently moved from South Africa to Australia and enjoy listening to stories while on long drives to visit their grandparents. And they love Anansi and the Baba Yaga stories. Good choice. And staying in Australia, let's hop across to Brisbane and say hello to Maven, who's just turned 5 and loves listening to the stories on the drive to and from daycare. She doesn't know what her favourite stories are because she likes them all. That's good to hear, Maven. Let's fly to Cape Town in South Africa now to say hello to Akin, who is 9. Akin listens to stories on his way home from school in the afternoon, in the bath and while playing with Lego. And we're off to the central coast of California next to say hello to Owlet Aurora, who is 6. Her favourite story is The Ghost of the Bloody Finger. And while we're in California, let's say hello to Owlet Naomi, who will be 7 any day now. Naomi lives in Oakland, and her favourite stories are River Mama and Kia and the Purple Fish. Ooh, good choices, Naomi. And down to Carrizo Springs in Texas next to say hello to Malachi, who is 9, Josie, who is 8, Jackson, who is 7, and Cosette, who is 4. Their favourite stories are all the Baba Yaga ones and the Magic Orange Tree. And up to Seattle in Washington next to say hello to 6-year-old Georgia, who enjoys listening to stories with her big brother on long car rides. She particularly likes the Hairy Toe and the Ghost of the Bloody Finger. And staying in Washington, let's go to Orting to say hello to Owlet Hazel, who is almost 6, or she might even be 6 now. Hazel has been an owlet for over a year and listens nearly every day. She loves listening while travelling in the car with her little sisters Juniper and Millie. Her favourite story is The Velvet Ribbon and, you've guessed it, The Ghost of the Bloody Finger. Across now to Rogers in Minnesota to say hello to Owlet Henry, who turns 5 on September the 14th. Henry is rather good at retelling the story The Ghost of the Bloody Finger to his little sister Ivy, who's 1.5 and loves listening to her big brother telling stories. Henry says he likes all the stories, even the ones he hasn't heard yet. Good for you, Henry. And let's flip-flap-fly now to Alabama to give a hoot out to Jack, who's just turned 6. Jack found the podcast a year ago and has listened almost every day since in the car. He can now say with some pride that he has listened to all of the stories. Wow! Just think what good listening skills you've got now, Jack. His favourite story is How the Snakes Got Their Poison, told by Toop. I agree, Jack. That is a very good one. And finally, let's fly across the Atlantic to Scotland in the UK to visit Owlet Casper, who is 6 and lives in Edinburgh. Casper has been an owlet since he was 5 and he loves listening to Super Great Kids stories in the mornings when eating his breakfast and on long car journeys. His favourite story is The 4 Dragons. That's a How and Why story about how the 4 great rivers of China became. Welcome to the club, Casper. That's it for Owlet Hellos this week. More welcomes next week. And thanks very much to all of you owlets who continue to support our podcast. If you'd like to support us on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon, We'll say hello to you on the show. You can hear our stories advert-free, and you'll get access to our Super Great Kids Stories Express with short introductions, no adverts, purely story. Great for long journeys and listening to stories back to back. And what's more, you'll have access to over 40 bonus stories and at least 25 super great scary stories. And our Pick of the Week picture goes to Nora, who lives near Malaga in Spain and who listens to Super Great Kids Stories every night with her brother Oliver. Thanks, Nora, for sharing your super great watercolour and pencil drawing of the Rainbird story. You've taken such a lot of care painting all those brightly coloured feathers. Just lovely. Hoo, 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 hoo. That's it for this week. Remember to look at our website for details of how to join us for our online show in November. I hope you have a happy week. Happy listening. Keep telling your stories and singing your songs. This podcast was produced at Wardour Studios in fabulous Fitzrovia in London.